And there have been some experiencers have talked about different ET races, and they've also mentioned different races like Greys or Pleiadians. What is your understanding on that?
Well, there's no question that not all aliens are cookie cutter, that they're not all identical. There are a small number of categories into which almost all aliens fit. Uh, the little grays, the bigger ones, and there's a consistency. I have no reports of beings with four arms or six legs or five eyes or anything. The science fiction writers have described lots of strange beings and say, well, how could it be that visitors from afar look like us? We may have a common source. Earth may have been colonized a long time ago. Look, how many people live in North America now? Go back 400 years. We're darn few. You know, somebody came over here, settled in. Colonization, migration are the two major means distribution of intelligent life on planet Earth, like it or not. And so we have to look at it the same way. And that leads to the question, why would anybody care about coming here? Well, the major, you can think, I have listed in some of my papers loads of reasons. They're mining engineers. The Earth is the densest planet in the solar system. A cubic foot of Earth weighs more than a cubic foot of any of the other 8 or 9 planets in our solar system. That means more heavy metals. And heavy metals are rare in the universe. We know that from studying the spectra of stars. By heavy metals, I'm thinking of things like osmium, which is twice as dense as lead. People say heavy as lead. Lead isn't very heavy. Uranium, iridium, there are a number of these metals. And some of them have very special properties. 100 years ago, uranium was used as a yellow coloring agent for dinnerware. That's illegal now because it's radioactive. We didn't know about radioactivity back originally. So now uranium is used for nuclear weapons, nuclear reactors. And if I'd said those words 150 years ago, well, what are you talking about would be the answer. We didn't know anything about nuclear reactors. Nuclear fission wasn't actually discovered until 1938. The same with nuclear fusion, and yet almost all the energy in the universe is produced by nuclear fusion. People don't realize that. And why would aliens care what we do? We have exploded 2,000 nuclear weapons on this planet since 1945. The first one at Trinity Site in New Mexico. Not too far from Roswell, which was the home of the only atomic bombing group in the entire world in 1947. So one reason for going to New Mexico, that's where the first atomic bomb was exploded. That's also where we had the organizations that fire rockets, White Sands Missile Ranges in New Mexico. It's the biggest military base in the United States. And so getting back to the aliens, I assume every civilization is concerned about its own survival. That seems normal, and that means you got to worry about the guys with fancy weapons in the neighborhood. Well, any civilization like ours that has demonstrated its total disregard for human life, World War II, and I remember it, we killed 50 million of our own kind. 50 million people on Earth. We're not nice guys. We destroyed 1,700 cities. Aliens checking this place out, and then all these nuclear weapons we've exploded, would be concerned about us. Why? Because that nuclear fusion and nuclear fission would enable us to go out and bother our neighbors. Yes, it's a long way to stars. It's just like it took Magellan 3 years to go around the world, and his boat made it. He didn't make it. The space station does it in 90 minutes. Progress comes from doing things differently in an unpredictable way. So what I'm saying is, aliens certainly would be concerned about this civilization having its hands on a means for getting them to the next star over. To give you some example of what difference it makes if you have control of nuclear energy as opposed to chemical rockets. Remember, in 1944, a big bomb was a 10-ton blockbuster. Took a big B-29 to carry it. 1945, the first atomic bomb, a fission device, released the energy of 15,000 tons of dynamite. Not 10, 15,000. That was in 45. In 1952, we exploded our first nuclear fusion device. It released the energy of 10 million tons of dynamite. 10 million, not 10 million. And the Russians tested Tsar Bomba, which released the energy of 57 million tons of dynamite in one stinking bomb. So if you were an alien, you would recognize not only are Earthlings primitive, nasty, happy to kill, but they have the energy to get to the local galactic neighborhood stars. And if I lived there, I would be very concerned about the people here. So you have to check us out. You might say they would want to quarantine us, keep us from moving out. And it is interesting that there have been many observations of UFOs near nuclear weapons sites where they've shut down the rockets with nuclear warheads on the top. That's happened more than once, the United States and the Soviet Union, incidentally. So what I'm saying is it makes perfect sense to me, considering our background. 2,000 nuclear weapons exploded. 50 million people killed in World War II. You got to watch out for these Earthlings. They're nasty guys. So that makes sense to me. I think every civilization out there is concerned about its own survival and security. That means looking around to see who's a threat to you. And everybody, every civilization will want to find out how its star produces its energy. We didn't find that out until 1938. We're not very advanced, and that means of doing it is nuclear fusion, which produces almost all the energy in the universe. All the stars operate on nuclear fusion. Not some, not a few, all of them. So they would recognize that anybody who can control fusion, H-bombs, as an example, could also reach the local neighborhood. And if I were in that local neighborhood, I'd be worried about the guys on this planet. Our track record is pretty poor. Every new place is a place to do battle for man. That's a sad comment.
But if they do if they do have advanced values, why don't they give us a clear message instead of watching us make mistakes? Why don't they just tell us that we are doing things incorrectly?
Would we listen? Remember, this is not a planetary society. It's a nationalistic society. Everybody's concerned about killing somebody else and being ready to do battle against somebody else. Do you think we would be willing to share what we have learned from wreckage of flying saucers, for example? Not if the Russians and Chinese don't put out what they have. So you can't tell your friends without telling your enemies. I think there are some rules in the galactic community. One of them is you don't impose your will, but you certainly don't allow somebody who's nasty like us. I mean, killing 50 million people means, in one war, means we're nasty, I think, pretty straightforwardly. So I can't imagine why any advanced civilization would say, come on, guys, we'll tell you how to do this right. The first thing we do is try to grab them in their vehicles and try to use them to exert our will over the others on the planet. Isn't that the way we are?